Hello National 5 historians, and welcome to this PowerPoint, which is going to talk to you a bit more about one of your National 5 history inquiry skills. Now, the different types of questions you can be asked at National 5 are broken down to two parts. We've got knowledge and understanding questions, which include a describe question, which is worth 4 marks, explain, which is worth 6 marks, a mini essay, which is worth 9 marks, and then we have the source handling questions, a source comparison, which is worth 4 marks, and evaluate the usefulness, which is worth 5 marks, and a how fully, which is worth 6 marks. Today, our focus is going to be on the evaluate the usefulness question, which is worth 5 marks. And you'll see for each of these questions, we have a Disney mascot to help you to try and remember the different types of questions. So the Disney mascot for our evaluate usefulness question is Pinocchio. Now, the usefulness question, our aims by the end of this presentation are the following. Firstly, to know how to answer a usefulness question. Secondly, to went over an example as a class. And then thirdly, to glue a template into our jotters. Now, if you're unable to glue a template into your jotters, if you're viewing this and you don't have a hard copy of this PowerPoint, then obviously you can copy that into your jotters. Now, some key information about the evaluate usefulness question. It's worth 5 marks. Now, when it comes to your National 5 exam, this can appear in any part of the exam, so any of the 3 sections that you do. So it can appear in your Scottish topic, your British topic, or your European and World topic. There will be 2 in total. One of these sources that you are asked will be a primary source and one will be a secondary source. Now, your aim for this question is to read the source and talk about how useful it is in researching a particular topic. Now, where do you get the 5 marks? Now, this is where you can get the 5 marks for the evaluate the usefulness question. You get 2 marks for content, so that's what the source tells us. You can also get 2 marks for omission, so that is what the source misses out. You can then get 1 mark for when the source was made. Now, already you may be thinking, well, there's 5 marks there already. So it is possible for you to just do 2 points from the source, 2 points from your knowledge, and then just do when the source was written. However, you have other ways that you can gain marks. You can also get a mark for purpose, so why the source was made. You can also get a mark for the author, so who made the source and why is that useful or not useful. And you can also get the mark for the type of source it is and why that would make it useful or not useful. Now, how do we answer this question? The best way to remember how to answer this question is using the mnemonic, which is cow pat, and you'll see the picture of the cow there on the left hand side with the pat. Now, cow pat, what that stands for, you're seeing cow pat stands for content, so these are points from your source. So what you're looking to say is the source tells us, and then you take a quote from the source, which is useful because it tells me, and then you paraphrase, so you put that into your own words, which matches my own knowledge, or which is true, or which is accurate. So you can do that twice, so that's up to 2 marks there. Then the O in cow pat stands for omission, so what the source doesn't tell us, so points from your own knowledge. And for this, you're going to say the source is less useful as it fails to tell us. So you do that once, and then you'd also say the source is less useful as it fails to tell us, and you do that again. The W in cow pat stands for when, so when the source was made and why does that matter. The P stands for purpose, so why the source was made and why does that matter. The A stands for author, so who wrote the source and are they important and why does this maybe make it bias potentially. And then the T in cow pat stands for type, so what sort of source is it and why does that matter or make it more or less useful. So again, that's worth 1 mark. Now, this is what you look to say for each point. So obviously we went over content there, so you'd say the source tells us, quote, which is useful because it tells me, paraphrase your point, which matches my own knowledge, which is true, which is accurate. So you do that twice. Omission, the source is less useful, it fails to tell us, so there's 4 marks potentially there. Now, for when the source was written, you just need to put the source was written in, then you'll just put the date and then put a full stop. Then you need to say this makes the source useful because. Now, if it's a primary source, you're going to say it was written at the time of, and you're going to state what time period or event it is. So, for example, you might say the source was written in 1917. This makes the source useful because it was written at the time of World War I when soldiers were fighting in trenches. It is not enough for you to just say it was written at the time of the event. That is not enough. You will not get marked for that. If it's a secondary source, so if, for example, let's say it was a source speaking about World War I, but it was written in the year 2010, you would say the source was written in 2010. This makes the source useful because it is written with the benefit of hindsight. So when it's a secondary source, you can say that. That means the author also has the ability to look back on the event, so it's with the benefit of hindsight. When you're speaking about purpose, you're going to say the source was written to, so it's maybe written to inform people or to record about a certain event. again put a full stop after that, and then you're going to say this makes it useful because, if it's in forum, maybe because it gives us a balanced account of the events, or if it's to record, possibly this makes it useful because it's a private account, so it's likely to be useful as well. For the author, now again, for the author, you just need to say the author of the source is a, now it might be a historian, it could be historians, it might give you the name of the person. Now, again, remember to put a full stop after that and say this makes the source useful because, if it's a historian or historians, you could say because they are well-informed experts and have researched the topic well. If it's a person who was at the event, so an eyewitness, you could say this is useful because they were an eyewitness to the events of conditions in the trenches, for example. And the last one is T, which is type, so the source is from, so what type of source is it? Is it from a textbook? It might be a diary, it can be another type of source. And again, put a full stop after that and say why that makes it useful. So this makes the source useful because, if it's a textbook, it's maybe been researched quite thoroughly. If it's a diary, it's likely to be an honest personal reflection of the events. So that's how we answer this question. Now what we're going to do is look at a couple of examples. Now this example here is an example out of context, so looking at Kirriemuir. So it says, sources from an interview with Mr. Keir, a resident from Kirriemuir in 2019. And we've got source A there, which says, I have lived in Kirriemuir all my life. It is a great place with lots to see and do. Kirriemuir is about 5 miles north of Forfar. The creator of Peter Pan, J.M. Barrie, was born in Kirriemuir, and there's a statue of Peter Pan in the middle of the town. Due to its location, Kirriemuir provides a great spot to stop at on your way to the Glens. I would recommend Kirriemuir as a great place to see. And your question says here, evaluate the usefulness of source A and tell us about Kirriemuir in the 21st century. So, how we answer this question? Remember, we're going to start with our C, so that's our content. So we've said here, the source tells us Kirriemuir is about 5 miles north of Forfar, which is useful because it tells me that Kirriemuir is close to Forfar, which is accurate. So you'll see that you've taken your point from the source, you've said it's useful because it tells me, and you've paraphrased that, and then you've said which is accurate. The source tells us the creator of Peter Pan, J.M. Barrie, was born in Kirriemuir, and there is a statue of Peter Pan in the middle of the town. Again, full stop, which is useful because it tells me there's a strong connection to Peter Pan in the town, which is accurate. So you'd have 2 marks there for content. Now what you need to do is your omission point. So what does the source not tell us about Kirriemuir? So you've got here, the source is less useful. It fails to tell us the Kirriemuir Festival of Music and Song is held in the town every year and attracts many visitors. So that'd be a mark for omission. The source is less useful. It fails to tell us Kirriemuir also has a high school. So there's another mark for omission. So we'd have 4 marks so far. Then your W for when the source was written. So the source was written in 2019. This makes it useful because it was written during the 21st century in Kirriemuir. We've then got the P for purpose, so the source was produced to inform us about what Kirriemuir is like as a town. This is useful because it's a private account, so likely to be useful. We've then got the author of the source is Mr. Keir. This is useful because he's a resident of Kirriemuir who will have a good knowledge of the town. And the last bit, T, is type. The source is an interview. This makes the source useful because it's likely to be an honest personal reflection of what the town of Kirriemuir is like. Now you'll see there for every single point, you've made your point, you've got a full stop, and then you've said which is useful because, or this makes it useful because. It's important that you make that point. You need to make sure that you're saying why the source is useful or less useful. Now here's another example from a history exam that you may be asked. So this one is on the slave trade. So it says source B is from a textbook written by a modern historian in 2014. I've got source B here which says London benefited greatly from the trading of slaves. A number of Londoners developed their businesses. For example, Ambrose Crawley, an iron merchant, produced manacles and irons for shackling slaves on ships. John Angerstein, the merchant who founded Lloyd's of London, made a fortune from his estates in Granada. The Pett family, master shipbuilders in Deptford, built many of the ships that were involved in the Atlantic trade. Trees from their estates provided timber for their shipbuilding business. And your question here says, evaluate the usefulness of source B as evidence of the benefits of the slave trade to the British economy. And you'll see when it comes to answering exam questions, you always have in brackets here, it says you may want to comment on what type of source it is, who wrote it, when they wrote it, why they wrote it, what they say, and what has been missed out. So it gives you hints there on what you need to speak about to remind you of COWPAT. So here's just some key points that have been highlighted here from the source. So you'll see at the top we've got source B is from a textbook, so we know the type of source is a textbook. Modern historian is highlighted, so we know the modern historian is the author. The year 2014 is highlighted, so we know when the source was written. We have some points highlighted in the source here, so we have a number of Londoners developed their businesses. For example, Ambrose Crawley, an iron merchant, produced manacles and irons for shackling slaves on ships, so that's one point we could use. we've got a point about John Angerstein that we could use, and we've got a point about the Pettit family we can use. Now, in an evaluate usefulness question, there will always be 3 points in the source that you could potentially use. You just need to identify 2 of them. So, this is what your answer would look like. The source tells us Ambrose Crawley, an iron merchant, produced miracles and irons for sharkborn slaves on ships, which is useful because it tells me iron merchants profited from the slave trade, which matches my own knowledge. The source also tells us John Angerstein, the merchant who founded Lloyd's of London, made a fortune from his estates in Granada, which is useful because it tells me economic benefits to Britain included banking and estates, which matches my own knowledge. Now again, we've said here which matches my own knowledge. You could also say which is accurate, which is true, whatever you prefer to do. So that's 2 points there that you would have right, so 2 marks for content there. Now we need to think about what the source doesn't tell us. So the source is less useful as it fails to tell us there was lots of jobs created by the slave trade for Britain in industries such as shipbuilding. The source is less useful, it fails to tell us cities such as Glasgow benefit from increased trade such as the tobacco trade. So we've got 2 points there that mention about jobs being created through things like shipbuilding, and also Glasgow benefiting from the tobacco trade. So that's 4 marks that we have there already. Then we're going to do W, because that's next in Cowpat for when the source was written. So the source was written in 2014. This makes the source useful because it was written with the benefit of hindsight. The source was written to inform us about the benefits of the slave trade, so this is the purpose. This makes it useful because it gives a balanced account of the benefits of the slave trade. Then we've got author. The author of the source is a modern historian. This makes the source useful because they are well-informed expert. You can also say that they've researched the source well. And the last one is type. The source is from a textbook. This makes the source useful because it's been researched thoroughly. So that is a model answer that you'd have for the previous question. This is just a template for your jotters, which we have already went over, just for what you can say for each point. Now again, as I said, this is worth 5 marks, so we can do 2 content, 2 omission, even when would be enough for the 5 marks. But you have the options there to speak about other points, other aspects of the source as well. So you can either glue this into your jotter if you get a copy from your teacher, or if you're unable to do that, you can copy this into your jotter. Okay, so going back to what we aim to do at the start of this presentation, so you should now know how to answer a usefulness question, remembering to use Unit 1 at Cowpat. We've went over 2 examples of the class. We've used one for Kirriemuir and we've looked at one with the Atlantic slave trade. And the last thing was to have glued the template into our jotters. If you're not able to go in the template, then obviously you can copy that in. And remember, your mascot for this question is Pinocchio, so Pinocchio should help you to remember that this is a usefulness question.